Thank you for being here today. My name is Barbara Gale, and I'm going to be discussing with you my two NDEs. The first one was in 1988, and my physical body actually died. I had the choice to come back or to leave, and I did not leave. And I'll tell you about that story. And then the second one was in 2010 when I did not have the choice. At that point, I did want to go home. I saw the light and I didn't want to return, but I was told no, I had to. So I'll talk to you about what happened there as well. My curiosity for you is if you're listening to this, is it because you've had a near-death experience and you wonder if what you had felt and seen, heard was real? I want to say that immediately, yes, trust what you felt, what you saw, what you heard. Because as time goes by, you might start to question it, especially if other people question you. So don't let that happen. Really trust your experience. And my guides have told me that we don't remember everything all at once. We just don't. And so know that in the coming days, weeks, months, years, more information will come to you. It's sort of like in your meditations or in your dreams, because we can't handle the full expression of what we went through or what we learned. And when I say went through, I mean that in the most positive way. So don't worry about that. Whatever you think you know, you'll know more later. And maybe you lost a loved one through death and you're wondering, is that it? Is it over? Is it a final goodbye? No, there is no death. It's not over and you will be reunited. I really want to express this to you with all authenticity because I have been giving communication since I was 3 years old from the departed to my family members. And then, of course, that grew. But there is no death. You will be reunited, and there's nothing to be afraid of. Okay, so that being said, my first near-death experience was in 1988. I had been born with heart condition. It's called WPW, and it wasn't surgically repaired until 1994. So I lived with it for a really long time. And on this particular night, as would happen sometimes, my heart got up to 500 beats a minute. But this was somehow different. The pain was more excruciating. And the person I was living with at the time wanted to take me to the emergency room. And I said, no, I'm going downstairs to self-heal. Because I had done this kind of work, like I said, since I was 3 years old, being in touch with the light, with the divine essence, with the guidance. So this was perfectly natural response for me. And when I went downstairs to do my self-healing, God had a different purpose for that evening. I I couldn't get up once I lay down on the floor. I just couldn't get up. And there was this incredibly brilliant light coming through the window. That was my logical brain kicking in, saying, well, it's in the middle of the night, somebody's shining their bright light through the window, and wow, I want to get up and tell them, please turn your lights off. But I couldn't move because of the pain in my body. It was too intense. And my brain kept working through this, trying to find a logical reason for this light until finally I just let go. The pain was too intense, the light was too bright, but then the light, the brightness of the light was not perceived by my mind as too bright, but I enjoyed it. I began to enjoy the warmth of the light and the kind of upliftment, the emotional upliftment with the light. Now, I want to just digress for one moment. I did not drink that night. I did not take any kind of recreational or hallucinogenic drugs. I don't do that. I've never done that because if I got drunk, I'd have a heart problem coming back, back into this body. So that being said, this was a purely organic experience. And as I was leaving my body, the pain was gone. I was in a state of euphoria. And suddenly I saw somebody from that kind of side to my right side floating from above and coming down. And out of the corner of my eye, I'm looking, who is that? And I finally, I heard myself saying, Jesus. And I had been seeing him since I was 3 years old. So this is not an unusual experience for me. But he said to me something he'd never said before, which was, are you coming with me? And immediately I thought of my 10-year-old daughter who was asleep upstairs. And I could not bear to leave her, and I could not bear for her to wake up in the morning and find that her mother was lifeless on the floor. I did not want to put her through that trauma of finding me lifeless. So I said, no, I can't leave my child. And with that, I was immediately back in my body. The pain was shooting through me in horrific intensity in my chest and my arm and my jaw. And the nausea was coming back. And I thought, oh, no, wait, I think I made a mistake. I can't do this. But he said to me, and this is what's so important to me, even to this day, he said, we will help you begin again. We will help you begin again. And I want you to take away with that. There is always help available. Always. We're never alone. So even in the process of passing from this life into the afterlife, which is absolutely authentic and real, we are never alone. So that being said, him having told me, we will help you begin again, I, prior to that, could not move really very much because of the pain. Christ's light, his light sort of imploded into itself. I think I'll put it that way. It just sort of seemed to go into him, and I thought he had left, but there was this soft, warm feeling underneath my entire body, like a billowy cushion of air, as if somebody was blowing some soft, warm air under my body. And I really do not believe I touched the floor. I don't remember my feet ever touching the floor. It was as if I floated literally through the air. And I floated from the living room into the hallway. There was a kitchen chair. I was seated on the kitchen chair. And there I sat, wondering, what am I going to do now? Well, it was very early in the morning. So the person I was living with was still asleep. My daughter was asleep. And I sat there for, I don't know, maybe 2-3 hours. And as I did, I had this sense of peace. I would say the kind of peace that surpasseth all understanding had washed through me and over me. The physical pain subsided, a sense of knowingness that I'm safe. That was what came in. Because when a person has a near-death experience, I've heard this from a lot of people, they get very frightened. How much worse is this going to get? What's going to happen? And nothing got worse. I felt calmer. I felt better. The pain was subsiding. And then my then partner, he came downstairs, but when he looked at me, he didn't really acknowledge, oh yeah, there was something wrong with Barbara. She went downstairs. He just was making his coffee and breakfast. And I had this message from guidance. And I said to him very spontaneously, I didn't even know what I was talking about, you're moving back to California and I'm going to Colorado. And he sort of spun around like, what? Because he'd just gotten us this home in Arizona. And it was only a matter of moments and the phone rang. And it was his boss calling, offering him a job that he literally almost couldn't refuse. And he said, we need you back. And so he looked at me and he said, okay, all right, I'll be there. Because I had just told him this was going to happen. Well, speeding ahead, he left for work. And I sat there again wondering, what am I going to do now when the phone rang? And I remember it was like 8 o'clock, 8 something, 8:10, 8:15, 8:30, somewhere around there. And it was my mom. And it was about 2 hours later, 3 hours later, maybe, where she was living. And I answered the phone and she says, Barbara, I was just reading a book and it's Linda Goodman's book. And she talks about this man, Ralph Bergstresser. And he's this incredible, famous scientist and healer. And he lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, right near you. And I feel like you've got to call him. This is his number. So there was a pen and paper there, who knows why, but it was on the table. And I wrote down Ralph's phone number, and then I just, made small talk, trying to sound like a normal person so she wouldn't know what happened. And got off the phone with her, wondered, what am I calling Ralph about? I really don't know why I would be calling this man. But my mom was so adamant about it. So I did. I called the number, got his answering machine, and said, "Hi, you don't know me. Somebody gave me your number. I'm not really 100% sure why I'm calling you, but this is my name and this is my number if you feel, that you should call me back. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye." And that was it. And he called back in moments, and he was very, very connected to the light, very connected to his purpose here on earth. And so Ralph said to me, "You need to come and see me." And I told him, "I can't. I'm not feeling well, and I don't believe I could drive there." And Ralph had this reassuring voice. And he said, "Yes, you can. There's someone in your home, and they will help you get here." And I thought, wow, how does he know that? But Christ said to me, "We will help you begin again." So I trusted that, and I trusted Ralph. And he said, "You will keep your feet on the pedals. You will tell the person with you where to drive, where to steer, and you will get here. I'm only 10 minutes away." And we did. We did. My daughter participated and she was excited. She thought this was fun. We got to Ralph's house. His secretary opened the door, and there were papers and books and phone ringing, and she took charge of my daughter. Ralph took me into a back room. It was something kind of like out of a Star Trek laboratory, all computers and electrodes. He hooked me up to electrodes and gave me elixirs to drink. And Ralph worked with me from early in the morning till late that evening, maybe 6 o'clock. And I felt like I was a brand new person. And I kept remembering I had the opportunity to leave and I didn't take it. I did not take this opportunity to leave. But Christ said, "We will help you begin again." And he must have had my mother call me. He had Ralph call me back. And I'm supposed to be here, but why? I kept those thoughts to myself because it was all very overwhelming. And then Ralph took my daughter and I to Denny's for dinner. And while we were having our dinner was getting prepared for us, and Ralph said to me, "Do you know you had a massive heart attack and died?" And I was pretty unimpressed with that because I said, "Yeah, I know. That part, I've been talking to the departed all my life. I had been giving messages from the departed all my life. I know there's no death." But my question to Ralph was, really, what I'd like to know is, why did you call me back? You're a busy man. I don't even know why you spent all day with me, and you said you wouldn't take one penny from me. Why? And Ralph said something else I want you to really take away with you. He said, "Because this applies to you, there's an important reason why you're still here, okay? You're a light worker and you're needed on the planet." And that was what Ralph said to me. He said, "Well, when I heard your message, my guides said to me, she's a light worker. We need her to remain on the planet. You have to help her." And then Ralph said to me, "And I always do what my guides tell me to do." That's another message for you to take away. When you are highly, intimately connected with your guidance because you meditate every day, because you talk to them, you keep the lines of communication open. When they tell you, turn left, turn left. When they say, no, this isn't a good time for you to take that trip, don't take that trip. So this is how that went. He was a loving, giving, generous person sent to me by the divine so that everything would fall in place to keep me here on earth, to help others, to give more healing, more explanations, more comfort. My biggest takeaway from that near-death experience was, oh my God, I had a choice. I had a choice. Sometimes in life we get choices. I've seen this with the readings I've done for people. I'll say something kind of I think I'm being humorous. It's a sort of perverse sense of humor. We'll say, "Oh, you had an opportunity when you were 3 years old, to leave the planet." And the person will say, "Yeah, I was deathly ill. I had a near-death experience." Yeah, well, but you chose not to. So there are what I have affectionately termed opportunities of leaving, and we are allowed to, but for whatever reason, we either choose one way or the other. So, and the next NDE that I had, I had gone out with family and friends to a Japanese restaurant for dinner, told the server no peanuts, no peanut oil, but something did not get communicated because they must have used peanut oil. You know where this is going. So I had an anaphylactic shock. And again, I was rushed to an emergency room. And wow, I don't remember really the things they did to me. I know the person who brought me said they were hooking me up to all these drugs that were going in IV, and they didn't know if they were going to have to cut my throat and put a breathing tube in, and they were going to lose me. And he said it was just chaos in there, organized chaos, and what they had to do. But for me, I had a very different experience. There was nothing chaotic. For me, I started floating. I looked at everybody and then just started floating away from my body. And I saw there were these two double doors. And I saw the doors were ajar like that. And there was this bright, bright golden white light coming through the doors. But the most exciting part of this is next to the double doors was my dad. And my dad was standing there like this with his arms folded across his chest. God bless him. Maybe he's listening to this. And I was in heaven. That was my idea of heaven. I started rushing to get to my dad. And as soon as I got close, this is so interesting to me. As soon as I got close, the double doors went like that. They closed, and there was no more light to be seen coming through them. And my dad's just like this. No, go back, go back. I I think my feeling was one of such huge disappointment that I just wanted to cry, but it wasn't really like I was able to cry. It was just huge disappointment. So being who I am and the tenacity, yeah, tenacity that I've always had, I walked, started strolling back away, but I turned around and I tried two more times. And when I turned around, those doors were ajar again. The golden white light was shining through them, and my dad was still there. But each time I tried, the doors would close, the light disappeared, and my dad would say, "No, go back." So it wasn't my time that time. So why did it happen? Why did I have that near-death experience? Well, I was missing my dad terribly, but he passed in 2007, and this was 2010. So it was a few years after he had passed. But why? Why? Because that's what a lot of NDEers take away. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Well, everything that happens to us is connected to everyone around us. And I came to feel that it happened because to save other people from this, because there was a lot that ensued with the restaurant. And my sense is that was never going to happen again, because that's definitely what their attorney said. Well, this is never going to happen again. So a lot of people learned a lot of things. A lot of people's lives were affected. And when you think about your near-death experience and you're asking yourself, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Look at everyone's lives that you interacted with and how much did it affect them? Were they surgeons, nurses, EMTs, friend, loved one? Who was involved in your care? What did they learn from it? Because nothing that happens just because of us. We are interacting with the whole of the universe and everything and everyone around us. So I hope this gives you a little bit of insight and a little bit different way or expanded way of looking at the near-death experience, and absolute proof that there is no death, that help is available, that there's nothing to fear. As a matter of fact, I wrote a book called The Immense Release. And The Immense Release, it's on Amazon, is filled with story after story and messages from guidance about the afterlife and about my near-death experiences in further detail that are undeniable. Unless your mind is completely shut, you will get the proof you've always wanted through that book. You can also reach me through my website, answersfromthelight.com, because all my answers come from the light, and you are connected to the light. And so I want to say, God bless you. Be calm, be happy, be peaceful, and trust. Trust. God bless.